Society will, like, gladly put a price tag of $200,000 on a diamond-encrusted sofa, right?
Yeah.
But, and this is wild, you can
Yeah.
literally hire a hitman for $500.
Yeah, it's a completely jarring comparison.
It really is. And when you stop and think about that, it becomes glaringly obvious that we are, completely and deeply confused about what things are actually worth. Like, we have no idea how to measure value.
Oh, absolutely. We're totally lost on that front.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are super thrilled to have you with us because today's source material attacks this exact confusion head on.
It does, and it's such a compelling read.
Yeah, we are looking at this fascinating essay and a collection of notes, dated today actually, March 27, 2026. It's titled What It Was Lived For, and it represents day 86 of a daily reading journey.
Right.
And our mission for this deep dive, we want to discover what actually makes a human life, complete in a world that is frankly filled with chaos and just completely incomplete information.
And to find that answer, we really have to start by throwing away the broken ruler we usually use to measure life, which is duration, like how long someone lives.
Right, the years.
Exactly. The text opens with this brilliant thesis from David Starr Jordan. He was a biologist who spent his entire life studying these incredibly complex systems, but he arrived at this very simple, absolute conclusion.
What did he say?
He wrote, be a life long or short, its completeness depends on what it was lived for.
Wow.
Yeah, duration is completely irrelevant. Purpose is really the only metric that matters.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because saying purpose is the only metric that matters sounds, it sounds great on a bumper sticker.
Sure, yeah.
But if we want to figure out what a life is lived for, we first have to figure out what we actually control within that life.
100%.
And the sources start with a pretty hard truth about our own internal state. There's this specific moment in the notes about Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. He's writing in his private journal, the one we now know as Meditations, and he catches himself writing the phrase, "I escaped anxiety today."
Right, but then he catches himself.
Exactly. He immediately crosses it out and corrects himself. He writes, "No, I discarded it because it is within me."
That distinction right there, it changes the entire paradigm.
How so?
Well, the word escape implies that something is out there, right, in the world, hunting you down, like you are the victim of some external force.
Yeah, like you got away from a predator.
Right. But discard implies that you are the one carrying it the whole time, you packed it in your bag, and therefore you can just choose to set it down. The anxiety was never external to begin with.
Right. But I feel like if you're listening to this on your commute right now, you might be thinking, well, it's really easy for a Roman emperor to talk about discarding anxiety. The guy literally had an army in absolute power.
Which is a fair point.
Yeah. Like if I'm facing a massive layoff at work or, I can't pay my mortgage, escaping anxiety sounds like running away from a bear in the woods. Which makes sense. The bear is real.
The bear is very real.
But discarding it sounds like realizing you're the one who put heavy rocks in your own backpack.
Yeah.
Is it really as simple as just choosing to take the backpack off? Like, what is the actual mechanism for doing that?
It's definitely not simple. But what's fascinating here is that realizing you are the source of your own anxiety isn't supposed to be a crisis. It's actually the optimal operating condition of a conscious life.
Okay, wait, explain that.
Because if the anxiety is inside the backpack that you packed, you have the power to unpack it, Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, understood this deeply.
And he was in a very different situation than Marcus Aurelius.
Completely different. Unlike Aurelius, Epictetus was a former slave. He knew exactly what it meant to have literally zero external control over his life or even his own body. Yet his advice in the sources on managing internal anxiety is brilliantly, deliberately unglamorous. He literally just says, blow your own nose.
Blow your own nose. That changes everything.
It really does.
If I'm expecting someone else to blow my nose, whether that's like waiting for my boss to fix my burnout or waiting for the economy to make me feel secure, I'm just playing the victim. I'm waiting for a savior.
Exactly. It's the ultimate call to self-management. He's basically saying the most basic acts of managing your internal state are yours alone. No one is coming to do it for you.
And what's wild is how the sources tie this ancient Roman philosophy straight into modern pop culture. Like Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun, talks about how being fully alive means being continually thrown out of the nest.
Which is such a visceral image.
Right. You go through a divorce or you change careers, You take a risk nobody in your family understands. You are out of the nest. And the Daily Stoic, which is this daily devotional reference in our notes, actually cites a Taylor Swift lyric to drive this home.
I love this part.
Yeah, without any irony, it just quotes, "You're on your own, kid."
Wisdom travels without a passport. Right. The fundamental truth remains exactly the same, whether it's an emperor, a former slave, a Buddhist nun, or, a pop star saying it.
But wait, isn't that incredibly bleak? Like, "you're on your own, kid," is a terrifying realization.
Yeah.
It's profoundly isolating. How did these philosophers deal with the sheer isolation of realizing no one is coming to save them?
Well, see, they didn't view it as isolation at all. They viewed it as an impenetrable fortress.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the hidden gift of being entirely responsible for your internal state is that because you are on your own, no one can take you away from yourself.
Wow. Okay.
An emperor can take Epictetus's freedom, an economy can take your job, but they cannot force you to be anxious. They absolutely cannot force you to abandon your character.
So if we accept that we completely control our internal state, we're left with this dangerous consequence. We have no more excuses.
Zero excuses.
We have to decide what we actually stand for.
Yeah.
And honestly, more importantly, what we are willing to lose to protect it. The text brings up some pretty intense historical examples of this, like Helvidius Priscus.
Right, the Roman senator.
Yeah. He kept publicly criticizing the Emperor Vespasian, and Vespasian was not someone you messed with. He could literally have you executed. But Priscus knew full well it would mean being removed from the Roman Senate, losing his status, maybe his life. And he did it anyway. Or Rutilius Rufus, who chose exile rather than compromise his integrity.
They all made a very specific, very cold calculation.
What was it?
They decided that being cut off from Rome, from their wealth, their status, their comfort, was vastly preferable to being cut off from themselves.
Yeah.
And this raises a really important question for all of us. How do we price our own character? Because courage isn't bravado. It isn't just being fearless.
Right, it's not about being an action hero.
Exactly. Courage is being fully aware of exactly what you stand to lose, but knowing deeply that there are losses infinitely worse than your job or your social standing.
And there's a modern equivalent to this calculation in the text from Simon Sinek. He argues that we have to stand for real, breathing people. Not abstract metrics, not quarterly earnings, not corporate policies.
It's just so hard to do in corporate culture today.
Oh, for sure. But if you stand for real people, you have to be willing to be cut off from institutional rewards. You have to know what things are actually worth. Which, brings us right back to that jarring comparison from the intro about the diamond sofa and the hitman.
Yeah, from Diogenes.
Right, Diogenes the Sinope, founder of the Cynic school of philosophy.
And just for some context here, Diogenes was a man who famously lived in a large ceramic jar in the marketplace.
Literally a jar.
Literally a jar. And he did it to intentionally mock society's obsession with luxury. So when he talks about worth, he's coming from a place of radical minimalism. He looked around and saw a market that might be economically rational, but was composed of people who were deeply morally irrational about value.
And this confusion about value runs through everything we do today. Like Peter Drucker, the legendary management expert, points out the business parallel to this.
Well, the hoarding knowledge part.
Yeah. He notes that modern organizations obsess over hoarding specialized knowledge. They think keeping everything internal, locking it away from competitors, is what creates value. But Drucker argues that knowledge decays rapidly if it isn't used. Hoarding it doesn't protect its value. It actively destroys it.
It's completely counterintuitive to how most businesses operate.
It feels like, treating your character like the fine china in a dining room. If you just lock it in a glass cabinet and never actually eat off it because you're terrified you might break a plate, does china actually have any value at all?
I mean, it has a price tag, but it has no worth.
Right.
And Marcus Aurelius essentially made the exact same point about human virtue. He said, good character acts for the common good. Character isn't a possession. It's not something you store in a cabinet so you can admire it. It is only worth something when it is spent in the messy, real world. Andrew Carnegie looked at this from the perspective of ambition and concluded that happiness is setting a goal that commands your thoughts and liberates your energy.
Liberates your energy. I like that.
Right. Worth is something that has to be felt and utilized. It has to be put into motion.
But this is where the theory hits a wall for me.
Okay, why?
Because spending your character in the real world sounds beautiful on paper, but the real world is complete chaos. How do we spend our character? How do we make these grand calculations about value when we don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow?
That is the million-dollar question.
There's a quote in the sources from the historian David McCullough that completely stopped me in my tracks. He said the hardest thing to convey to people about the past is that nothing was ever on track.
It's such a profound realization. It kind of destroys our entire illusion of history. When we look back, history is frozen in amber. We see the beginnings, middles, and ends of empires. We think of the past as a finished narrative where everyone knew their part. But nobody ever lived in the past. They lived in their present, which was just as uncertain, chaotic, and terrifying as ours is today.
Exactly.
Wow.
Marcus Aurelius didn't have a crystal ball. He didn't know his son Commodus was going to grow up to be a disastrous, tyrannical emperor who would undo so much of his legacy.
No, not at all.
Seneca didn't know that trying to mentor and align himself with Nero was going to end in absolute tragedy and his forced suicide. They lived their lives with what the text calls a partial picture.
Yes.
And honestly, here's where it gets really interesting. Isn't it terrifying to commit to a major life decision with only a partial picture? It feels like trying to drive down a twisting mountain road at midnight
Yeah.
with only your headlights. You can only see 20 feet ahead of you, but you still have to steer the car at 50 miles an hour.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Stoics weren't trying to magically upgrade their headlights to see miles down that mountain road.
They weren't.
No, they accepted the darkness. They were just humble enough to keep their hands on the steering wheel, updating their actions second by second, based on the new information those headlights revealed.
Just reacting to the 20 feet they could see.
Right. Brian Aldiss, the science fiction writer, is actually quoted in the text saying that creativity is, in part, a real-time solution to a problem. It happens under incomplete information.
So it's not about waiting to get it perfect before you start. It's about acting in the dark.
Exactly.
The text mentions a book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. He points out that genuine preparation isn't waiting around for perfect information. If you wait for the complete picture, you just suffer from paralysis by analysis.
Which so many of us do.
Yeah, wishful thinkers wait for certainty. Prepared people act with the partial picture they have, so they're already moving when the opportunity finally hits.
Because that partial picture is all anyone has ever had. The expectation of complete information before making a decision is really just another one of those heavy rocks in your backpack. It's another form of anxiety we need to discard.
Okay, but to safely navigate that twisting mountain road in the dark, you can't just rely on luck, and you can't just wing it.
Definitely not.
You have to rely on reflexes. And the sources get incredibly specific about the mechanics of how we build those reflexes. We build them through relentless preparation and tracking. The notes state, point blank, all winners are trackers.
Yes.
And I have to admit, I did not know this next fact, but Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, it wasn't written to be a best-selling philosophy book for us to read thousands of years later.
No, it was never meant for an audience.
Right. It was literally a Roman emperor's private habit tracking document. He was tracking his own behavior daily to correct his mistakes.
He was identifying the gap between what he intended to do and what he actually did. That tracking is how you close the gap. And the sources bring in Kobe Bryant to illustrate this exact dynamic in the modern era.
Oh, the Mamba mentality.
Exactly. Kobe's approach to his craft was summarized perfectly in the text. Work like you have absolutely no talent, but play like you believe you are the best player in the world.
See, how does someone hold both of those thoughts at the same time? Working like you have no talent implies, deep insecurity, but playing like the best implies massive ego.
Well, it's not ego or insecurity, it's the mechanics of character.
Yeah.
Humility and preparation means you honestly acknowledge the gap we just talked about. You track your flaws. You work as if you have zero natural talent because you know the mountain road is dark and treacherous.
Right.
But confidence and performance means that when it's time to act, you trust the work you've already done, you step into the arena without the paralysis of self-doubt because your preparation has earned you the right to trust your reflexes.
Which leads to what might be the most intense practical directive in these entire notes. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. The distinction between those two things completely rewired my brain.
The difference is enormous. Practicing until you get it right creates what the author calls conditional competence.
Conditional competence.
Right. It means your skills will hold up under favorable conditions, but the moment you face real pressure, they collapse. You read a book on emotional intelligence, you feel great, you think you've got it right. The next day, your biggest client pulls out, your team is panicking, and you immediately start yelling. That is conditional competence collapsing.
It's like learning a really difficult song on the guitar in your quiet bedroom. You finally nail the solo once and you think, I've got it!
Exactly.
But true reflex character practicing until you can't get it wrong, that's being able to play that exact solo flawlessly on a live stage when your amp blows out, the lighting rig catches fire, and the crowd is screaming. How do we actually build that level of reflex in our daily lives?
By repeating the right response in the micro moments until it is no longer a conscious choice. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when you get a rude email, when you feel the urge to complain, you practice the stoic response. You blow your own nose over and over. Until it's automatic.
Exactly. It literally becomes an involuntary reflex. That is the oldest, truest definition of character, a nature formed by repetition.
So we've talked about discarding anxiety from our backpack because we control our internal state. We've talked about pricing our character properly and being willing to spend it, even if it means being cut off from the crowd. We've explored driving in the dark with a partial picture and practicing our values until they become absolute reflexes. Where does this all lead? Like, what is the final destination of doing all this hard work?
It culminates in the final product,
Yeah.
a complete life, a life synthesized into a coherent narrative. And the notes offer a structural framework for understanding this, using Stephen Pressfield's analysis of a Bruce Springsteen song.
Hungry Heart. We go from Roman emperors to Kobe Bryant to the boss.
I know, it's a great leap. Pressfield breaks down a life into a 3-act structure, just like the narrative of that song. Act 1's the meeting, falling in love, the initial naive state of joy.
Act 2 is the destruction of the thing they had. It's the loss, the betrayal, being thrown out of the nest. And Act 3 is the protagonist alone again in Kingstown. It's the hook, the build, the payoff, emotionally and thematically.
But the crucial realization here is that the person standing there in Act 3 is not returning to who they were in Act 1. Like, they haven't regressed.
No, not at all.
They've gone through the destruction of Act 2. They have survived, and they are changed forever. They carry everything with them. So what does this all mean? It's kind of the difference between hitting reset on a video game because you took some damage and you want to get a perfect, pristine score on the first level.
Right.
Versus dragging yourself to the final boss level, carrying all the scars, the depleted health bar, but also wielding the upgraded armor and weapons you earned from surviving the journey.
Exactly. You don't get to Act 3 without the scars. And that brings us all the way back to the opening quote from David Starr Jordan. A complete life is not the absence of loss. It is not a long, comfortable, pristine run where you never drop the fine china. Completeness is the integration of these 3 acts into a self that kept showing up day after day, making decisions in the dark with only a partial picture.
Wow.
That integrated, battle-tested self is exactly what a life is worth, and it is what a life is lived for.
We've covered so much ground today. If you take anything away from this deep dive,
Yeah.
let it be the realization that you are holding the pen. You can't measure your life by how long it lasts, only by what it was for. The locus of control is entirely internal. You are the one who packed the heavy rocks of anxiety, which means you are the one who can take off the backpack.
That's right.
No one is coming to blow your nose for you. You have to step onto the stage of your own Act 3, carrying all your scars, and spend your character on real people, in the real world, even when you can't see the whole road ahead.
And if true character is formed by repetition, and only truly revealed under pressure, it leaves us with one final, vital thing to consider. What is the one unconscious reflex you are practicing right now today that will ultimately define your personal Act 3? In the quiet, mundane moments of your day, are you practicing anxiety or are you practicing courage?
A heavy question, but one absolutely worth carrying with you. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Until next time, keep your headlights on and keep driving.